Hi, friends. My name is Rafael Gonzalez from Continental Investments, and today Jorge Machado from Jembiz Loans is joining us. Jorge has been involved in the financing world for many, many years, and he's a very well-known and very well-trained person on this field. So we have asked Jorge to spend some time with us and answer some questions that many of you clients have. And I would like to give Jorge an opportunity to present himself.
Hi, Rafael. Thank you for the opportunity to have this conference, because I know there's a lot of misinformation out there in the market. My name is Jorge Machado, or as Rafael says in Spanish, Jorge. My company's called Jembiz Loans, and we assist companies and real estate folks obtain financing all over the U.S. Right now, the hot product is the SBA loan product, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. We've been doing SBA loans for, sadly to say, Rafael, 35 years, when there were only like 5 lenders in the country that would actually do SBAs. So with that, let's get started and with a Q&A and clarify this program.
Perfect. Jorge, what is the CARES Act and how it works?
Well, the CARES Act is actually the name that was given to the financial package as it related to businesses and business loans by Congress. The name of the actual loans that are available are known as the Payroll Protection Program, which is a loan that will be done to small businesses through lenders. And there is also a SBA direct loan program, which they called the, it goes under the name Disaster Program, or ELA. And we will talk a little bit about both programs and what it funds and what's the difference between the two. But the CARES Act also included, in addition to those 2 loan programs, some relief for existing SBA loan holders. And I'll quickly mention those. If you have an existing SBA loan, 7A or 504 or SBA microloan, you can immediately reach out to your lender, and they've been authorized to provide up to 6 months moratorium on payments to help the small business get through these next few months. It's supposed to be automatic, but I would encourage you to call your lender who's managing your loan and immediately ask for that deferment. They will grant you an immediately 3 months, but it can be given up to 6 months.
And obviously that's for existing loans.
That's for existing loan holders.
And it covers all of the SBA programs, not simply the 7As or one of them.
Correct. And basically there's 3. There's the 7A, there's the 504, and there's the SBA microloan programs.
Okay. And Jorge, for the sake of clarification, and again, as you mentioned, there have been a lot of talking around and email sending and Facebook conversations that are very confusing for many clients. What is the difference between CARES Act and the Payroll Protection Program?
Okay. As far as the new loans, the Payroll Protection Program is going to go live. It actually has not gone live, and that's part of the misconception. It was supposed to go live yesterday, but the SBA and the Treasury Department were not ready to provide lenders with what was needed to process a loan. So fingers are crossed that it's going to go live on Monday, or if not, sometime during this coming week. That is going to be a direct loan to business, and the loan amount is going to be the same, calculated the same for every business. It's going to be essentially 2.5 times the average monthly payroll that the business had in 2019, to keep it simple for folks. And the use of funds is going to be to pay payroll, to pay utilities, insurance, basic overhead, including rent, mortgage payments, or interest on loan debt that they had as of the end of 2019. That's the eligible use of the funds, but the actual loan amount is only going to be 2.5 times the 2019 average payroll. So we'll the lenders are going to take a look at your total 2009 payroll compared to your 940s, which is what you have to submit to the government of what you paid for payroll. Plus, they're allowing the 1099s. If you have staff that you pay in 1099, you have to supply the 1099s. You add that together, divided by 12, that's the average monthly payroll, times 2.5, that's going to be the loan amount. That Perfect. Loan is going to be initially no payments for 6 months. And starting in July, a business can request a forgiveness of an amount of the loan by providing their 940s and 941s of what they paid for payroll from February 15th through March 30th, which is the first quarter, and all of the second quarter, and the amount that you've paid for payroll, and this time it is payroll, not 1099, that amount will be forgiven on the loan. If there's still a balance, then they're going to let you claim amounts paid through the same time period for utilities, insurance, rent, a mortgage, or interest on loans to eliminate the rest of the loan. Now, that portion has a cap of 25% of the loan. So after reducing the loan by what you paid in payroll and up to 25% what you paid on that overhead, if there's still a balance, that small balance will be repayable over 2 years at 1%, beginning 7 months from the day of the loan. That's the Payroll Protection Act. Now, there's also a direct loan from the SBA that's done through their website, and it's known as the Disaster Act loan. It's called disaster because it's the loan that usually is available to businesses after a hurricane or a flood. In this case, the disaster is the economy. So folks can go right to the SBA website, sba.gov, and click on the link right at the top of the page for the program. The application will take less than 5 minutes. And that would be up to a 10-year loan or possibly a 30-year loan at an interest rate of 3.75. Now, that loan is going to be done a little bit different. It's going to target the same 2.5 times average payroll, but here's where the big differences are between the two programs. On the PPP program, the collateral is going to be waived. No requirement that it needs to be secured by collateral. They're going to waive the guarantee. So there's no requirement that the individual owner will have to guarantee it. While on the direct loan through the SBA, it will require collateral and it will require a guarantee. They'll offer a longer repayment term based on the collateral if there's a balance left on loan, and there won't be a forgiveness of part of the loan. So when you match up the two, really the Payroll Protection Act is the better loan for businesses at this moment. That's not to say that some businesses wouldn't fare better with the direct loan, in particular, small sole proprietors. If you're a sole proprietor and you really don't have any employees, or if you only have one employee, since the loan amount is going to be based on 2.5 times payroll, going through the lender, you're probably going to end up with a loan of less than $10,000. Through the SBA Direct website, they've made a commitment that if you apply through there, they're going to provide a $10,000 advance very quickly, even before the loan is decided. And whether you're approved for that loan or you're declined for that loan, they're going to forgive that initial $10,000.
But to be sure that we are clear about this, on the Small Business Administration Disaster Loan Assistance Program, the collateral is necessary.
Collateral is necessary on a loan above $25,000. The first $25,000 is going to be basically credit scored with no collateral. But on amounts over $25,000, it's going to have to be secured on the direct loan through disaster assistance. That's why, again, if you're a very small business, and your loan amount is really going to be less than 25,000, especially less than 10,000 based on 2.5 times payroll, you're better off going right through the website because you're going to get at least 10,000 forgiven. Well, even if you qualified only for 5,000 or 7,000 or 8,000.
So that means that if you do the application online, you automatically will get 10,000 whether you are approved or not, and those $10,000 are
forgivable.
And forgivable once you prove in the next 90 or so days that you have the 941 or the 1099s and expenses about it for that remaining 25%.
Yeah, with the disaster direct loan at this moment, what we're hearing is that they're going to forgive that 10,000 whether you're approved and take the loan or you're declined without any additional documentation. Now, what happens if you apply for both? If you apply for both, if you apply and got that initial $10,000 advance, and then on the other loan, let's say you're approved for 50,000, they're going to deduct that 10,000 that you were advanced from the loan on this side.
Perfect, fantastic. Okay, how do we deal with the issue of eligibility? How can we help people understand the eligibility factors?
Well, in this case, it's very easy because normally the SBA 7A program has a lot of different criteria for eligibility, but for this program only, the government has made it simple. If you are a business located in the United States with less than 500 employees, then you are eligible as long as the owner hasn't been barred from doing business with Uncle Sam, hasn't defaulted on a government loan, is not related or to an employee of Congress or the SBA, has not been convicted of a crime. As long as that's the case, then they're eligible to receive the Payroll Protection Program loan.
What about non-for-profits?
Good question, Rafael, because normally non-for-profits are not eligible for SBA loans, but in this particular case, they've opened the window just on this program for nonprofits that are structured like a business and pay a payroll, as long as it's not a specific religious organization. So what does that mean? That means that, for instance, a church would not be eligible for the loan support. However, if that church owns a daycare or it runs a school, that daycare business and that school business would be eligible for payroll support under the program. And there's only a handful of businesses that may be considered not eligible under that criteria. One example would be a religious bookstore. Yes, it's a business, but it only sells product of religion. And so therefore, it's against SBA rules of funding and supporting private clubs of exclusivity.
Obviously, during the last few days, there have been a lot of back and forth on the social media and so on about organizations that are trying to establish a very clear pathway for churches to get financed or financing through these loans. As we continue to find out about this process and as we continue to learn more about what the government is allowing and is not allowing, we will continue to communicate to them about these issues. But let's talk about the sole proprietors and the small LLCs that do not have a payroll, but basically pay most of their employees through 1099s. How will these apply to all of them?
Well, let's use the perfect example, real estate companies, realtors, which I know it's familiar to you, Rafael.
Yeah. But
in most cases, realtors, the staff majority is all 1099. So if the 1099 individuals, realtors, could apply directly through the SBA website for a direct loan as a sole proprietor or a single member LLC. the realtor can only apply for himself as a sole proprietor, also LLC, unless he has additional employees that he's paying a payroll. Then in that case, he can get a higher amount. But you should encourage as a realtor to have your 1099 employees, because they are individual businesses, to apply for themselves, and they're going to get at least the 10,000 applying through the website.
And again, it will be through the Disaster Loan Assistance Program.
What they call the Disaster Loan Assistant. And for some of you who may have gone into that website 2 weeks ago, don't be discouraged, because 2 weeks ago, they still had the old application from the disaster, like hurricanes. And yes, it took almost 4 hours to complete that application, but they've simplified it. So now it only takes less than 5 minutes to from start to finish. It's very simple. If you are a sole proprietor or a single member LLC, 1099 employee, I encourage you to immediately go to SBA.gov. I also want to mention a couple things that there's been a lot of misinformation, especially from the banks. And it's because they haven't received the rules from the SBA. And so there's been some banks that have said, oh, we're ready. We've got some other banks that have said, we're not going to do this. We've had some banks that said, sorry, but we're not doing it at this moment. And then we got some banks that said, we're only going to do it for our clients that have an existing business deposit account at this moment. The truth is that there hasn't been a single bank that can process a loan on this yet, because they don't have the full rules. Starting next week, applications can be processed. And the banks are new to this concept of how do you verify payroll. We at Jembiz Loans, we've been doing this long enough. We know what's going to be needed in order to verify everything. So we process these loans with multiple banks to compete to make sure they get through. So I've had calls over the last 2 days from clients saying, I went to my bank to apply and they just sent me to the website and it's so confusing, I need help. Well, we could do it for them. I had another one that said, I went to the bank and my bank says they can't do it for me because I don't have a business deposit account with them. I have a business deposit account personally, but not through my business. So there's a lot of special rules the banks are throwing in to only look at certain deals. We have the advantage of being able to deal with all the banks throughout the U.S., including non-bank lenders, so that businesses don't run into that problem.
Great. And let me ask you another question, going back a little bit. Can a business apply for both loans, or should they apply for both loans at the same time?
A business can apply for both loans. In the certification, they initially had come out that you could not apply for both. They changed that certification so when you apply, you're asserting that you have not received money for payroll from the other program. And as I told you, once you're approved by one, when you get approved by the other, they're going to back out any amount that was approved by the other so that you can't double dip.
Okay. When we talk about these payoff amounts, are these grants?
They're not directly grants to the individuals or the businesses. The way it's going to be handled is that the SBA, which insures the lender's loan, will, in essence, pay on the insurance, paying off the loan. That's how it's going to be handled. So that is not a grant that's going to the business. It's a insurance payment that's being paid to the lender who holds the loan in order to eliminate your loan. The only piece that is really a grant would be that $10,000 that is done through the direct SBA website on those loans that will either be approved or declined, but the first $10,000 will be forgiven.
Okay, so it's good that to understand that even though the process is a seamless process for the receiver, for the client, because SBA will pay off that other loan, that doesn't mean that you don't have the responsibility as a business owner to keep on top of this and be sure that it's done. And that's one of the benefits of going through a company like Jembiz to do that application, because you will be able to follow up and see what the bank is doing and or the lender is doing and how they are paying off that amount and so on.
Correct. We show them exactly how they're going to verify that after in July, because we're having them verify that going into the loan application. They'll basically be supplying the exact same information that we request up front. That lets them know what is going to be the proof in July.
Perfect. And Jorge, can we talk a little bit about time frame and disbursements? Supposing that we, as you know, that a small business goes in on Monday or Tuesday and do an application, what kind of time frame are we looking at? How will it happen, and how will the reimbursement happen?
Okay. Essentially, normally, if a lender was set up with the proper procedures, it would take about 10 business days for a decision. And then depending on what the conditions of that approval were, it could take like another 2 to 3 weeks to close. In this case, because there is no collateral, the closing should be fairly quick. Having said that, understanding that banks still have not received the process from the SBA, even though they're going to start to take applications on Monday, realistically, you're probably looking at least 3 to 4 weeks to get funding from the SBA loan. Through the website, they had promised that they would try to get funds out 5 business days after the application, but it has not happened yet. And you've seen the U.S. Treasurer get up on TV and claim that they're going to start to fund sometime next week. So the flux of the timing is just that this is coming from businesses all over 50 states. It's much larger than what the typical banks or the SBA has been used to handling in terms of loan volume. And that's going to affect the timing.
And that's an important point that I want to emphasize to our clients and friends, because at the point in time that you do an application on your own, you kind of lose control of the process. While if you do it with somebody like Jembiz that have the connections, that have the way of following up, you will get a flow of information that will allow you to make decisions and to keep up with the dates. Obviously, this is a national emergency. There will be hundreds of thousands of applications in place. One of the concerns that one of the clients mentioned to me this week, which I think is a very valid one, is that, well, there was a $2 trillion program. How am I sure that I am, and when I put my application, I am in that first $2 trillion worth of funding? How can you address the issue of funding versus the original program, and how will that work?
Well, what I would say is you hit on something. The way loans are processed is a lender is underwriting a deal. If all the stuff is there, it gets finished underwriting, it's approved. If there weren't underwriting a deal, but it's missing information, then it sort of goes to the back of the line while the information is requested for it to be able to be looked at again. So if the application is complete going in, and one of the things that we do is not only ensure it's complete, but we also make it easy for the lenders by, in essence, providing them with what they're going to have to do in the underwriting. So it makes it easy for them to say, oh, look, this is basically done. Here's the proof, approved. So that it can move very quickly. It is a limited amount of money. Yeah, it doesn't sound like 349 billion would be not much money, but when you break that down, but probably the average loan that I guess is going to be somewhere around 150,000, maybe a little shy of 200,000, because again, it's 2.5 times monthly payroll. Even though they say the program can go to 10 million, nobody's going to get 10 million. That's roughly 2 million loans in the U.S. So the Treasury Department thinks that the money will exhaust by June. I think the money's going to exhaust faster than that, not in a matter of days, but probably in about 2 weeks. We're going to be looking at they'll be running out of money and going back to Congress for more funds.
Now, that should not have any burden on the original $10,000 that we talk about on the disaster loan assistance program.
Correct. The $10,000 through the website is allocated differently, and because they're committing to an initial 10,000 advance, what's going to happen on the direct loan program is the SBA is going to be overwhelmed. The loan decision for the SBA and the direct loans is probably going to be 35, 45, maybe 60 days. But if they go through their money, they would have still given everybody who applied at least a $10,000 advance. And I think that's what you're going to find there. You're not going to see a lot of large loans from the direct program, but I think they're going to try to get as much of a small $10,000 advance to every business in the U.S. that applies to it.
Now, Jorge, and I want to be sensitive to the people out there that are struggling and that are having a lot of issues, but at the same time, there are businesses that this is a unique opportunity for them. For example, I know a guy that is in need of getting more equipments in order to be able to expand his production of products that are related to the protection materials that hospital needs. So if we have companies or business entities that need additional monies for equipment and working capital to be able to grow their business on this time, what kind of alternatives are available for them?
Well, the normal SBA program is still there. And while most banks have brought it to almost a halt, the program's still available and some lenders are still processing loans. So, and we have lenders that are. I will tell you though, that each of us, each business and individuals out there should really either write or call or tweet or Instagram or however you want to do it to your local congressman and representative to make sure that they implore them to provide the SBA with the level of a 90 increased guarantee of up to 90, like we saw after 9/11, and we saw again in the recession of 2008, 2009, because in this CARE Act, the Senate increased the 7A program to 100% guarantee. However, when it went to the House carved out this program and put the rest of the SBA program back to the 75%. And I believe businesses are going to need more money, not only for expansion, but general working capital. And if we don't get the SBA to provide a higher level of guarantee during this time frame, I can see many lenders starting to create a credit crunch, because I've seen it already. But the tap hasn't been shut off. We are still processing normal SBA loans, especially for equipment, for acquisition of real estate. But the working capital dollars are going to be hard to get from lenders if we don't get a higher guarantee. So I'm from Florida, you're from Florida. That means we should reach out to both Senator Rubio, Senator Scott, especially Senator Rubio, who was working with the committee that helped write this program. I've already written to him that it's important that this goes back up to the not 100% or if not 190% for more financing for businesses. as well as calling your local representatives. Here, Val Deming is in our area, but you look up in your area, or even if they're not in your area, just reach out to a senator as a business owner and say, we need more than just, this is good to get us over the next 2 to 3, maybe 4 weeks, but more is still needed.
Yeah, because that big plan is we need a lot more for the future. So we all need to communicate to them and let them know that we want to see that 100% program again in place. Jorge, before we close, and most likely we're going to do this again in 7 to 10 days because of how fluent this whole situation is and how many things are coming out that are basically dripping hour by hour in terms of information. But before we close, can we talk a little bit more about the issue related to non-for-profit churches and ministries that are struggling? I have gone through probably 100 different reports over the last 2 days that different agencies and different non-for-profit organizations or groups are writing their Congress people and the senators and talking to the office of the president and so on about how they can get churches to be incorporated in any of these programs. What are your thoughts about this? What you think that could be done? How you think that the non-for-profit believer groups like churches will be able to finance some of the needs that they have at this point in time, which are very important because remember that many of the churches are the only resource that many people in the community have right now to get some help. I was talking to a church today that last week alone delivered about 120 grocery lists and so on. So the core of this nation in terms of service for the real needy people is taken care of by churches. What do you think that will happen in the near future that will allow these churches to be able to get grants or loans to be able to serve their communities?
Well, I would say that when you look at a church, especially when you look at a larger church, there's a lot of business owners within that church. And since this help is targeting those businesses, I would make sure that the church is letting each of these businesses know that this funding is available, and even to the small little guy who's a sole proprietor. That's certainly going to help the business, which it should have a reflection on the church. Also, you notice that a church that has a daycare, has a school, or maybe even one that has property that is managing and has a management company, those are eligible business to get funding if they're paying a payroll. So if the church has various businesses that they're running like a business, those are all eligible as long as it's set up as a separate business. Where it makes it difficult to get support from these programs for a church is if they don't do this as a separate entity with its own 501c3 to have to run as a business. When they just keep it in with no specific separate legal action, that's where it makes it hard for a church. And I know it's too late to start to create them, but I would leverage those businesses that are involved and make sure that they are available of this program, as well as maybe a grocery store or a bodega, if it can get additional support beyond this program, whether it be through a normal 7A loan or whether it be through some support from the church parishioners to help that business be able to then supply its goods and services to the rest of the community.
Yeah, one of the things that we have been very proactive on talking to the 150 or so church members of our organization is that one of the ways that the church can help their membership is by means of letting them know that there are resources like these ones that can be applied for, and that will help that person in that congregation keep on going and being able to pay their employees and keep the economy going, while all of this is solved and we go back to normal, which will be a very different normal than the one that we know today. But that way, the church can help their membership connect to people like you and people like me and so on, to be able to help them get to those programs that they need to get, so they can keep on tithing and they can keep on serving their communities in a way that is effective and that is responsible. So, hey, listen, Jorge, I appreciate your time. I think that it has been great to have this conversation. Again, we will repeat this in about 7 to 10 days with an update, probably shorter, getting everybody aware of what is going on. So stay tuned, keep on talking to us, and we will definitely be back with you. So thank you so much, Jorge, for your time, and we will talk soon.
Rafael, thank you for the time. I want to put out there, our website is jembizloans.com, Jembiz loans.com. You can go to jembizloans.com, or you can email us at jembizloans.com in order to apply for this loan, and we'll have somebody get back to you with an application so you can be ready, your business can be ready for when it opens up next week.
And there are links on our websites to Jorge's website, or simply call us and we will connect you with him. So again, thank you so much, Jorge. We will talk soon, and to everybody else, stay tuned. We will keep on bringing information to you that will be of value at this point in time. Blessings to you all, and keep safe.
Thank you, Rafael. And I was remiss and just mention that both of us hablamos español, and we have bilingual staff que habla español. So si usted es un negocio que no habla inglés pero quiere aplicar, nos puede llamar y te podemos ayudar también.
Great. Thank you so much, Jorge. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.